Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, we'll have some important information about hepatitis, the concerns going on about hepatitis A, the start of mosquito season, as well as what you should know about romaine lettuce grown out in Yuma, Arizona area. It may have caused some trouble here in Kentucky. That's coming later. Fayette County's Health Commissioner, Dr. Craig Humbaugh, will be with us. But first, some very difficult and tough decisions have been made recently at Eastern Kentucky University. Programs and personnel have had to be cut. Some sports have been eliminated. Even the future of the school's marching band is up in the air right now. Kentucky is the only state in the union to have cut its allocation to public higher education for 12 years in a row. Lawmakers also acknowledge it's the only state to be moving toward a performance-based funding model while scaling back its investment in public colleges and universities. All of that said, EKU is circling the wagons and calling on its supporters and graduates to help push for excellence and access at the large comprehensive regional university. And they have some encouraging numbers when it comes to graduates and success. Dr. Michael Benson is EKU president, and he joins us for Kentucky Newsmakers. And we really appreciate that. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bill, for having me.
I know the exciting time is coming for you next weekend when you get to hand out some diplomas.
About 3,000 worth. And when every student walks across that stage and I get to shake their hand, I always remind myself that each one of those students is a story. And behind that story is oftentimes struggle and sacrifice, and also that ticket to a better a world of opportunity. And that's what education is all about. You know, access to higher education is, I would argue, one of the greatest things we can provide to our citizens in the state and to our country. And I love graduation. It's my favorite time of year, so I'm really excited about next week.
Has to be fun. Well, it was a combination of factors that led to a $25 million shortfall for Eastern. How difficult was it for the school and for you personally to have to make the kinds of decisions you did to scale back programs and eliminate some personnel?
Well, I'm now in my 16th year as the university president. I have to say, Bill, in all honesty, this has been the hardest one, hardest year for me personally, but more importantly for our institution. I tell my children all the time, you know, life is the 10-90 rule. 10% what happens and 90% how we react. So a lot of these things were not of our own doing, but we're in our positions of having to make decisions and put the school in a position of financial stability. And so together with our Board of Regents and kind of collaboratively with our entire campus community, we had to make some of those tough choices. Oh. And we tried to do it in a very thorough and thoughtful way. We knew it was coming. I mean, this has not been a surprise. The governor's been talking about our pension problems in the legislature for quite some time. So we've been going through this process for several months. It's been all out there in the open, it's been in the press, and it's been difficult. But I would argue that the hardest part is behind us, and now we got to move forward with a kind of a different Eastern, but still the Eastern with the doors open to all that want access to education.
As you were making those difficult decisions about majors and programs and even the sports to cut and so forth, what guided you in the decisions?
Well, I think what guided me first and foremost was the fact that Eastern's been around since 1874. And it's going to be around long beyond my tenure or the tenure of anybody on campus. And so we really have a responsibility to be custodians of that tradition and that heritage and to leave it better than how we found it. And so the decisions shouldn't be made just for 2018, but for the next 50 or 100 years. And so the responsibility fell to us to try and make those decisions based on the future. And it's hard. I mean, people with steel in their spine came to Richmond and established the school, and it's gone through difficult times in the past. And as I read the history of Eastern, I've talked to people like Doug Whitlock that served Eastern for 40+ years, and Jana Weiss, who was there for a long time, and others. You know, I've been inspired by their stories of having weathered the storms in the past. This has been, as I've said before, a kind of a perfect storm of some really unfortunate events and circumstances. That still doesn't excuse us, and we've tried to face them head on and make those difficult choices, but to think about future generations and the students, and always put the students first.
Were you surprised, or maybe I should say, were you disappointed that even when the legislature raised taxes and overrode the governor to enact a state budget, that the cuts remained to higher education?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. Sure, I mean, I would argue that an investment in human capital is the best investment any state can make. And an investment in education, particularly higher education, is the best investment a state legislature can make. That said, I understand that we've got hard choices to make in Kentucky, but the fact that, as you said in the intro, we've had 12 years of successive cuts, we have to reverse that trend, Bill. I mean, Kentucky, when we came here, I really came to appreciate in short order the rich tradition that we have of higher education institutions in our state, both public and private. In our county, Madison County, 10 miles down the road, Berea College is arguably one of the most unique institutions in the world. And we've been around, as I said, for a long, long time. You go up the road, UK, great public research one, Center College is not far away, Transylvania, the community college system. We have this wealth of a broad spectrum of institutions, and we need to cherish them, we need to support them, and we need to promulgate them.
The Council on Post-Secondary Education, which oversees all the public colleges and universities, decided that no institution will be able to raise tuition rates more than 6%. You had previously announced that you plan to freeze tuition for the coming year. Will you be sticking to that, even though you would have that option of going up to that amount?
We did. Our board actually approved that 0% tuition increase back in November, so we were the first one out of the gate, and we did take a little bit of criticism from some, saying that, boy, that's early and you don't know what the budget's going to be like, given the legislative session hadn't even started yet. But it was a decision based on the fact that we wanted to be able to tell students as we began that recruiting process, this is the sticker price. This is what you can expect to pay in fall of 2018. Now, next year, the CPE has said we can't raise it any more than 4%. And we'll have to kind of read the temperature of our board and see what their inclination is. But I don't think we're going to go anything, we can't go anything beyond that. But we want it to remain, we want an Eastern education to remain affordable and remain accessible to anybody who wants to come to EKU.
Some have held out hope that a marching band could still be put on the field, or that some of the programs in sports that have been eliminated could be restored. Is that realistic?
The sports cuts, quite frankly, Bill, that's pretty much a final decision. And that was a really hard decision to make. Still in all, the cuts had to be campus-wide. The marching band, while they may not be in the form that we're accustomed to now, it's going to be a different sort of pep band that's going to be open to all students, not just music majors. So it may be a different iteration, and we may see a different kind of form and a format, but we're going to invite all students that are interested to participate, still under the direction of a music faculty member, but within student success. So while some are upset and rightfully concerned, I would encourage them to wait and see what we're going to do in the fall and to be supportive. And we're also going to involve other local marching bands, whether the high school or the middle schools around Madison County.
I've seen that done, sort of a fusion band just last week. It was down in southeastern Kentucky, and they've done the high schools, which can have very strong programs, and the college bands are coming together.
Look at Madison Central. I mean, just invited to participate in the Macy's Day Parade, and I get it. I mean, I'm a musician myself, and I love marching bands as much as anybody, but we just couldn't afford to do what we were doing in the past. So it'll come in a different iteration. But I would encourage people to be patient and be supportive.
You had expressed hopes in football moving up the ranks. Does this curtail that?
We're not talking about football moving up. Quite frankly, that's a conversation that's just not happening now. I mean, I think that ship has sailed, and we'll focus on where we are right now and do the best we can at the FCS level and continue to compete in the Ohio Valley Conference.
As you are able to refocus on what is working and to orient your efforts toward majors with higher employment potential, as the state is requesting you to do, what will that mean you'll need to prioritize?
Well, we will continue to focus on the niche programs that EKU has that nobody else has. You know, Bill, what do we offer that no other institution in Kentucky has? We've got the best nursing program with the highest placement rates and the best licensure pass rates. We have an aviation program that no one else has. We have a criminal justice and fire safety program that no one else offers. We have a science complex that you and I were talking about before we went on today, 340,000 square feet, that I would argue is the best basic science space in the state, maybe the region. So those unique programs that continue to be an attraction for those students that can't get those programs anywhere else. Also, we're being a lot more aggressive with our online programs. We just took an accounting degree completely online, announced that yesterday. We've revamped our MBA program. We've taken a sports management program online, a communications degree online. So it's kind of fun at graduation next week. I'll meet students that have never set foot on campus, and their first day will be the day they come and collect their degree. And we can take those degrees anywhere, any place, anytime.
Maybe they'll be impressed and say they'll come do their graduate degree
exactly.
work there, right? All right, there are bright spots. I want to talk with you about those and how you move forward with EKU. We're with the president of Eastern, Dr. Michael Benson. We're back on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers in just a moment. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers as we continue to visit with the president of EKU, Dr. Michael Benson. We've talked about a lot of the tough issues and the very tough decisions you had to make, and I said that was kind of the dark segment. We'll talk, yeah, but you have a lot that you're very proud of that's happening on campus, including an important certification.
Right, LEED Gold, which is a really hard certification to get for a building the size of our science building. As I mentioned, 340,000 square feet, and for a building that complex with the lab space and all the hoods and everything that goes into a building that complex. So to get that is a real coup for our campus. I tip my cap to the architectural team that designed it and the firm that constructed it. And so in the fall, we'll get that certification and have a kind of a blow off the door celebration.
And I know you were hearing this during those difficult decisions that were having to be made when personnel were being cut and things were happening, that yeah, but you have these new dorms, you have the new science building, you have these new facilities on campus. Clear up for our viewers how those sources of money end up in different places.
Right, well, thank you for the chance, because I try as often as I can to help clarify that. We have our, of course, recurring budget, which we get in really several different pots from the state appropriation, tuition and fees. But as far as construction of new capital projects, that can come from a state appropriation like our science building. It can come from our P3 projects, public-private partnerships for our new residence halls. It can come from Aramark, our food vendor that built our new dining hall. It can come from a student fee. Our students started talking to me. I guess they've been talking about a new rec center as early as 2011, 2012. When I got to campus in 2013, they said they were ready for a new facility. They approved the fee in 2015. It was implemented. So that's what's redoing the Powell building and constructing the new rec center. Private funds helped build the Karloftis Garden. The new parking deck was part of the P3. Bonds were issued in 2015 for our new athletic facilities. So they're all different pots of money that are completely separate from our state appropriation or our recurring budget that was certainly reduced the last several years. So,
the aviation program is often singled out for its success, and part of that is that there are jobs out there for those graduates, right?
Well, the numbers kind of vacillate, but I've heard upwards of 700,000 pilots will be needed over the next 2 decades, commercial pilots, and we're trying our best to get as many pilots trained. The challenge we have is we just don't have enough aircraft, we don't have enough instructors. What happens is our instructors come, they come for a while, then they get gobbled up by either regional carriers or UPS or somebody else.
You have co-written a book, College for the Commonwealth, with Hal Boyd, who was previously on your staff over there, and you make a case for higher education. I want to ask you a little bit about that book, but I want to ask you this too. We're clearly moving toward increased automation. Robots are doing more and more. Some indications are that in 10 years robots will have taken a lot of jobs from people. How does a comprehensive university like EKU prepare its students for that?
Well, that's a good question. I was in San Francisco just 10 days ago, and I heard Google's chief education evangelist. That's his title. And I guess they made that up. But he spoke about what employers want. And it's the same thing we've been hearing for 20 years. And he kind of gave that in rank order, what employers want for their new employees. The ability to work in groups, the ability to analyze, the ability to think, to reason, to think creatively. Far down the list is anything about coming up with an algorithm or to anything technical. So all those things that we can deliver through a whole host of degrees, whether it's sociology or philosophy or English or theater or whatever. We believe that a liberal arts education that we can deliver at a place like EKU or any number of the regional comprehensives or universities in Kentucky trains today's worker for a whole host of jobs. Yes, there's more automation, but I believe a graduate from a university in Kentucky needs to have those skills that can train him or her for anything.
Can a university instill a thirst for lifelong learning? That is so that, because, and I'm an EKU graduate, as you know, and we were taught the buttons that you push in the early 1980s, but a lot has changed. Those buttons aren't there anymore. So you have to, you're learning a way of thinking and a thirst to continue to learn.
Absolutely, and the ability to find the answer. You think about the different kinds of jobs that graduates are going to have during the course of their working lifetime. You're not just going to graduate in accounting, for example, and be a cost accountant for your entire career. You may go into a whole host of different things. The same goes for those that graduate in sociology or history or political science. So our job is to train students that can think, can get along, can reason, can communicate, can have empathy, and that's what I would argue that lifelong learning, like you said, Bill, is so important because you're going to do it your entire career.
You have a unique facility on your campus in Model Laboratory School. There have been concerns about its future, I know, but you have named an EKU graduate who is now in charge over there.
John Williamson, who comes to us from the AP board. He's been helping write the AP exams. A graduate he worked for and was the superintendent for Fort Mitchell up northern Kentucky. Fantastic superintendent, and we're so excited to have him back in Richmond. And he is just the superintendent and the leader we need for Model Lab. It's a wonderful resource. It's been around since 1906. And we think it can really be the leader to show what a Model Lab school can do in terms of pedagogy, training teachers, training superintendents for Kentucky and beyond. You
had announced plans to build a new facility. Is that on hold, or will that go forward?
On hold for the time being. We've got to figure out how we're going to finance it. And we're at capacity. I mean, we have a waiting list probably 300 deep for our K through 5 classes right now. So we've got to figure out how we're going to exactly be able to do that. So we've kind of given that task to John to figure it out.
I want to give you just a minute as we close this segment with you, just to let folks know where your heart and mind is right now relative to where EKU is after these difficult decisions of the spring. You pointed out that tough times have come before and they have passed, and what your hope is for the future.
Well, I had a really good conversation with a group of faculty just 2 days ago. And I said, look, I would hope that the challenge of these last 2 semesters, we can put those behind us and we can reorient and look toward the future. Because you know, students will take their cues from us, and if we walk around kind of stoop-shouldered and down in the mouth, they're going to say, hey, you know, why would I want to be here? We've got to be forward-thinking. We've got to be, I think, bright-eyed and looking toward the future, and remind ourselves constantly that EKU's been around a long time. We've changed lives. We've been that school of opportunity that's provided chances for so many people, and we've got to continue to do that. And we've been through a hard time, but we're going to pull together, and we're going to do even better, and we're going to continue to provide those opportunities for all those people that want to come to Richmond and change their lives.
I appreciate you coming in, Dr. Benson.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Bill.
Hope you'll stay with us on WKYT. Coming up in just a moment, Fayette County's Health Commissioner on some issues out there right now. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. All of a sudden, several health concerns have grabbed our attention, including hepatitis A cases in Kentucky, concerns about E. coli from lettuce grown in Yuma, Arizona and shipped to the Commonwealth, and it's mosquito season. Joining us is Fayette County Health Commissioner Dr. Craig Humbaugh, and we really appreciate that. Thanks for coming.
Good to talk to you again.
All at once, lots of topics here. We've had 400 cases of hepatitis A here in Kentucky. What should that concern us?
That's right. We've had over 400 cases that have been reported associated with this outbreak that's been going on in Kentucky, starting last fall, actually, and mostly in other areas of Kentucky, but it's beginning to effect, and we're beginning to see cases here in central Kentucky now.
What should we know about that? What should we be concerned about?
So first of all, folks need to know that hepatitis A is a viral disease that affects the liver, and it's spread when somebody who gets sick with it sheds these viral particles in their stool. And then those viral particles, which are microscopic, can contaminate food or drink, and then when somebody eats that or drinks that, then they can become infected if they're susceptible. And it can make you sick, pretty sick. So the symptoms of hepatitis A can be fever, abdominal pain, also vomiting, diarrhea, and yellowing of the eyes and skin. And it can last for a couple of months up to 6 months. Fortunately, it's rarely fatal unless people have complicating or other underlying health problems. And there is, unlike the other main types of hepatitis B and C, there's no long-term infectious state, so there's no chronic state associated with hepatitis A.
How do you best prevent hepatitis A?
Great question, and because it's oral fecal spread, one of the best ways is to just good hand washing and good hygiene. But the number 1 prevention method is vaccine. There's a vaccination now, so it is a vaccine preventable disease. And fortunately, this vaccine has been recommended for children for the last several years. So many children have already been vaccinated against hepatitis A.
But it's a two-step.
That's
right?
exactly right. So you get one vaccination now, and then you wait 6 months, at least 6 months between now and the next vaccination. This vaccine is going to be required for school entry this coming year in 2018-2019 school year, so it'll be required for school attendance. So I think this is timely that we're talking about hepatitis A, because parents will need to know if their children haven't already been vaccinated that they need to be vaccinated. So all children should be vaccinated, and then other people who are at high risk should be vaccinated. So those include folks who are going to areas that have hepatitis A where it's prevalent. Also includes people who are substance users, for instance, incarcerated folks, and food service workers should be encouraged to think about getting hepatitis A, because a case of they prepare food,
right,
and so it's very important to encourage them to have hepatitis A vaccination.
Well, I hope we get a lid on this quickly. Dr. Humbaugh, the concerns about E. coli from tainted lettuce, specifically grown around Yuma, Arizona, are getting some attention. Some of that's been shipped to Kentucky. I think we've had a case in Kentucky, but not in your area.
No cases here in Fayette County, but along the same lines as we talked about with hepatitis A, this is a disease that we can prevent by good hand washing and good food preparation techniques. And so it's really important to make sure that you clean all produce before you eat it. We'll knock on wood and hope that we don't see any cases from that.
Hopefully
here.
most of that's been pulled, right. Mosquito season is here. And they can carry just lots of things, right?
Right. So, you know, we worry about mosquitoes because they carry West Nile, and they also carry other types of encephalitis here already in Kentucky. And then we worry about the potential for them to carry things like Zika, which has been seen in South America and Central American countries, which hasn't yet arrived here but could potentially come here. So this is the time of year when our environmentalists are out in neighborhoods in the city, especially neighborhoods where we've had a lot of complaints in the past or where there's been a lot of standing water, and they're canvassing those areas to look for puddling water and try to talk with homeowners about eliminating that water. It can be as little as water that could collect in toys outside. Folks need to remember to change their bird bath water or their pet dish water on a regular basis. Any tires obviously in the yard need to be get rid of. Those can all be sources of standing water.
So if they stop at your place, it's for the safety of all. Yeah,
right, exactly,
right.
exactly.
The U.S. Surgeon General has recommended that everyday Americans have Narcan, they carry Narcan, and that they know how to use it. Are we at that point, Dr. Humboldt?
I think we are, especially here in central Kentucky, where we have an opioid epidemic. So those of your viewers who don't know, Narcan is reverses the effects of opioid overdose. So Narcan can save a life, and it's important to have it available in a community setting, at home, at work, on the street, and potentially know how to use it, because this drug can reverse the effects of opioid overdose and prevent death and before the EMS workers have a chance to get there. So 911 should always be called, but Narcan is an important tool that we have to help people get a second chance at life, and then a second chance at recovery as well.
And the law has been changed so that you're not liable if you try to assist with that. Right?
That's correct, and it's very easy to give it. It's a nasal spray in most cases, and I'll put in a plug, but we offer it at the health department at our location at 650 Newtown Pike from 11 to 1 each Friday, so folks can come in, get a short training, and then go home with a free naloxone kit.
Very quickly, you want to plug the pet vaccination clinic going on this week.
Yes. So May 10th from, I believe, 6 to 9 p.m. at Castlewood Park, we'll be having a low-cost pet vaccination clinic. Veterinarians will assist our health department workers in animal control and getting folks pets vaccinated for $3.
Right. All right, sir. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's Kentucky Newsmakers. We want to thank you for joining us, and you make it a good week ahead.